What's this? If you don't speak now, you submitted. What's this? Understanding humanity course. Okay. Well, let's have a look.
I don't usually start my videos with a call to action, but this time I
Call to action.
because something is happening and the world is ignoring it. The jihadists in Syria had declared a jihad against the Druze in Tuesday.
What?
Meaning they're planning to get rid of each and every one of them. You understand the implications?
Of the Druze?
I hope. So I'm editing quite late, but luckily now I can see how many things are happening and there is a major shift in the battlefield. So Israel is there 100% with the Druze. The Druze are really showing fierce resistance and fighting back and winning, which is amazing. But this is where exactly the battle begins, because just like in Israel, where the international community is trying to enable the genocide of the Jews, it's hard.
What? The international community is trying to enable the genocide of the Jews. Where?
They're trying with all their might. They're going to try to do the same with the Druze. They're going to sell a
I've not seen that.
false
What are they
narrative
talking about?
about what's happening in Syria. They're going to twist it. They're going to minimize it.
Who is Syria's Giuliani, man behind Assad's fall, known for his moderate approach, but was once an extremist because of 9/11 attacks?
The suffering that the Druze went through, they're going to not tell you the whole truth. They're not going to say what really happened. In fact, they would try to show it as if the jihadists were, it was just a quarrel between equal sides, but it actually is not. And when they do that, when they would do that, they would try to pressure Israel to stop helping the Druze. They would try to pressure the Druze to submit to Giuliani. And what would happen is that at some point, that would enable an actual of the Druze community.
Why would they do that?
In Syria, because we have actually passed there is no going back now, all right? For centuries, the Druze had disguised themselves and pretended to be Muslim as much as they could, even though their traditions are extremely different from...
Yeah, they're like ancient. They've got their old tradition, but they feel like they had to hide because the Muslims. Deadly, man. Now what, they're looking for him to kill them. Why? Let the people be.
the Islamic...
Again, that's what I see. Again, I see it. It's like the enforcing of their views. If you don't agree, then you die. Nah, this is not peaceful, man. This is hellish.
ones. But to manage to survive, they had blended in with Islam, and there is a lot of Islamic sects in in Syria and in general. So they were like, okay, we are Muslims, but they're not. And the cards are on the table now. Everybody knows that they are not. It's not even a secret anymore that much what they believe in or how they believe in things. There was a lot of religious doxing. So for the Druze, they kept their religion secret. I talked about it in other videos. Please check them out. But now there was a lot of leakage about what they believe in, what they do. And there is so much ridicule online about their beliefs.
Yeah, that'll be no doubt. That's what people do. Sheep. That's what they tend to do. Something they don't understand, or they just ridicule it. It's just your lack of understanding. Don't worry.
By the Muslims, of course. And by the way, what triggered officially this attack, this call for jihad, is a claim that the Druze were mocking Muhammad. It didn't happen, but the heck, it needs to happen, They didn't care.
Okay, so they claim that they're mocking Muhammad.
It was the official cause. Listen, personally, it was a blood libel. In retrospect, I can say, well, at least they tried harder with us, right? At least we drank children's blood or something. They just...
Okay, no.
Said that somebody somewhere said something about Muhammad, and that's it. Jihad. Anyway,
That's mad.
This is where the international fight begins. It's gonna be a little bit easier, to set up the stage for them to take care of the kuffars. the infidels, to take care of them in accordance to Islamic law. Because everything is out. The cards are on the table. They know that they're not Muslim. They know that they don't really follow enough of Muslim practices or...
Well, so now kill them. Why? Where's the justice in that? Because they don't follow Islam, we're just going to kill them all. Yeah, no, I think that's evil, man.
I don't know even if any, to be considered Muslims. All right, so that tactic, out of the window. They cannot pretend. They cannot say, yeah, we're somewhat Muslim. That is gone. So everything is on the open. They have nowhere to hide. It is the point of no return. They are not Muslim anymore, meaning they are also not Jewish or Christian, which are the people of the book. Exactly. They cannot even pay jizya, technically speaking. But the international community, what they're gonna do now, they would try to set up the stage for this genocide to happen.
What the fuck, man?
For this jihad to
Leave them alone.
be allowed. Don't let them. Don't let them.
Neither Christian, nor Jews, nor Muslim, they got their own thing. Leave them. Why call for annihilation of a people that don't align with yours? That's nefarious, in my opinion.
Do that.
Why?
Spread the truth.
Can't be that simple.
Spread the truth about the situation of minorities and the real indigenous people in the Middle East. Everywhere. Thank you.
And this is interesting because I'm looking at what people of Islam used to be before,
and
the beliefs they had there, and it's interesting. I'm currently going through it. It's a lot of stuff, but it's interesting.
What I want you to do is go ahead and be not
Black for
a
centuries.
passive viewer, but a cheerleader. You know, yes, it's funny to see how bots all over the world are going around and commenting on every video, Free Palestine. Well, at least they're seeing. And yet nobody looks or sees what's happening to the Druze because they don't have those cheerleaders. The Druze community is small. They're in the Middle East. They are surrounded by people who want to destroy them because
That's fucking terrible, man.
they're not Muslim. They're infidels. All right, so this is what I said originally, that you have to bring awareness to what's happening to the Druze. Now it's not enough anymore. We're in war now, full-on war, so it's going to be tilted, right? So now we need to remember that you cannot have the Druze being together with jihadists in the same place, where the jihadists...
And then also, this is a great way for Israel to expand, because as we can see, it seems like that's what Israel's hell-bent on, is an expansion. So if it gives aid to this Jew community, this is just what I think, if it gives aid to this Druze community, it might have a stake over there, and I don't know, some sort of, it might feel like it has a right to something. So it's interesting to see what's going on here.
Have so much more power via Turkey. The West has to make sure nothing happens to them, right? The only way it could happen is if they are not under, in any way, shape, or form, jihadist or Islamic governance. Not Turkey, not Syria, not Jordan, nothing. Okay? These people cannot be under the protection of a group that had designated them as infidels, as in not even the people of the book. Okay? Cannot.
Because they'll get slayed by them, innit? They'll get murdered. So this small community is shitting itself, innit?
Happens.
It's such a... Humans, innit? Here we are. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Humans.
Cannot
Doing
be
it
happening.
again.
Remember that. It's a new war. It's a different kind of war. Of course, what had happened to lead to that is also very important. But the framing now needs to be making sure, because they're going to say, okay, you made it fair. You made it even, right? So you fought back in Sweden and Dara, and you won against the Bedouins. This is what's happening. They are winning against the Bedouins, and there are many casualties, like a lot of terrorists that died. They're gonna say, okay, you got your revenge. No, they did not. They did not, because they will continue to wait for the moment to genocide them. All right? So we don't want to set that stage, right? We need to remember that there is no living or compromise with those who want to annihilate you.
Yeah, how is people meant to live under that? You can't. You simply can't. She's right.
All right? And the Druze, if you allow that, the Druze will be gone. Israel is stronger. Israel is a country. The Druze don't have that.
Yeah, so any help towards them, that's why I think it's a tactical move for Israel and its continual expansion plan. And we've seen the images of their plans for Greater Israel. It includes Syria. So, this is my suspicion. Of course, they'll give them aid in order to maybe get something later. I don't know.
That's my thoughts. Remember, this war is only starting. Please, be a cheerleader. Everywhere, just spam. Say, hey, what's about the Druze? Hey, why didn't you write about what's happening to the Druze yet? Hey, don't you think that's important? Hey, why don't you talk about it? Hey, how about we stop it? Because unlike last time where they broadcasted that...
Yeah, it's like ridicule because they're infidels or whatever, so they just deserve death. That's very detrimental. I don't think that's not peaceful.
Atrocities that they were doing when it came to the Alawite population, this time they had learned their lesson because, international pressure worked, so they had to stop. Of course, the Alawites probably wouldn't get the long-term solution at all or any way to, protect themselves in the future occurrence that will happen and are probably happening, but still, it did something. This time, they were smarter about it. They learned, okay, so the minorities in Syria are not like the Jews. So when the Jews are being slaughtered and that is being broadcasted throughout the world cheers and says, yes, go on.
No.
Like we saw that Hamas did.
Huh?
Well, the jihadists...
The world didn't. The world was condemning Hamas. What are you talking about, love? The world was not celebrating. The world is actually always on Israel's side. What's she talking about here?
Had learned that the world doesn't have the same view on Alawites. It's more neutral, so they didn't...
I get what she's trying to say, though. She's trying to say, they have a similar plight. Oh, okay then. Man, all right.
Like those videos and didn't cheer on them the way they appreciated it when it was happening to the Jews, so they're not doing it with the Druze. There aren't those, videos that broadcast the awful things that they're doing because they learned something. There are videos of them. They were shaving the mustache out of a Druze person they captured. They were saying, hey, don't film. So I guess there is a learning curve, and they're not stupid. This operation was planned. This jihad call was planned. They chose a date where they knew, first of all, Israel was busy. It was Independence Day. And on top of that, we had crazy fires. So it was very hard to divert the media attention to anything else. So that was a lucky, I don't know if it was lucky or planned, but probably, lucky event for them so that they could have a head start with no problems. And it seemed like they did plan it ahead of time. They capture roads and supply chains, obviously block the roads. It was all planned, and it's backed by Turkey. So they have ammunition and weaponry and tanks and everything coming from Turkey that supports all this. Turkey had promised that they would capture Jerusalem. They want to have a border with Israel to capture Jerusalem, and they are working hard on reestablishing their caliphate. And if there is something that the Ottoman Empire was very, very much known for, is the very oftenly conducted genocides. The Armenians, brutal. The Greeks,
brutal.
The Maronites in Lebanon, the Armenians, full-on genocide.
Wiped them out.
Assyrians, full-on genocide.
No.
The Maronites, purposeful starvation. Yeah. Now they're continuing those same tactics. They want to continue. This is how they know. And those are the glory days they're aiming to go back to. So, of course,
That's horrifying, isn't it? The glory days of what? Complete and utter war and carnage. And carnage, I mean, that's terrible, man. That's terrifying. That's not the good old days. That's hellish.
To strive to do the same to the Kurds and to the Druze and so on and so forth. Christians, whoever. And, I made a short clip out of a live that I made that I had the thumbnail saying the Ummah. You don't know your neighbor until this happens. And we are seeing a live example of that because the Bedouins in Dawa were pretending to be in good relations, and Israel had actually an operation during
That's actually so sad, man. They got to pretend. I find that sad.
Word called Good Neighbors operation, and they were actually helping the Bedouin community in Dawa that had shown their true faces. They had attacked their Druze neighbors, declaring jihad on them. Unfortunately for them, and luckily, they're miserably failing in Dawa when it comes to fighting the Druze because they had managed to snap out of their surprise quickly enough to retaliate appropriately, and those fights are still ongoing. And this is how I heard the Druze describe it. In the morning, they were neighbors and they were best friends forever, and at night, or I don't know, during the day, the mask dropped, and the Bedouins in Dawa revealed the jihadists they really are. Until now, they pretended to, cooperate, be in good, behaving in good faith both with the Israelis and the Druze, but the moment jihad was declared and they knew that they could, then they did start behaving. So I do recommend watching. It's a pretty short clip out of the live, but you see that happening right now again. So yeah, it goes north to south, I think, because first of all, they started stabbing students that study in Haleb because there are universities there and there are Druze students there. Started stabbing them. They had to evacuate them, so they evacuated all the Druze students from Haleb to the south. Then I'm not sure if it was in parallel or exactly the timeline, but they also had entered, there were those clashes with Druze neighborhoods and cities next to Damascus. And, at first there's clashes some time ago, and then they had some sort of a hudna and an understanding. Of course, hudna, as they do in a hudna, they break it. Right. And there is this beautiful video that is circulating showing, hey, there is an agreement, everything is fine, still used to cover up what's really happening. They used this video.
Fucking hell, man.
Of the head of the town of Sakhnia saying to the jihadists basically that, oh, you're welcome, everything is fine, yes, there is an agreement, and they had executed him and his son.
They killed him. Fucking hell, man.
And there are reports from Sakhnia, the same place, which are nowhere to be found, but from inner sources, the Druze are saying that they killed 600 in Sakhnia and they had taken hostages and women that they had labeled as sabaya, meaning sex slaves.
Yeah, this is barbaric. This is barbarism. This is fucked up, man.
So there is that going on. But they had cut off communication and the internet in those neighborhoods to make sure the Druze would not be able to make it visible to the rest of the world. They're not stupid about it. So yes, like my friend Mansour said, Elon Musk Starlink was created, I think, exactly for this kind of situation, and Syria needs it right now because we're not going to see what's happening in Syria. when the Druze had their communication lines cut off. And for those who are wondering, well, can they do it without cutting off the whole country? Well, it's a neighborhood. You just cut off the neighborhood. So yeah, you can do that. And so there is that. So of course, that was very shocking. This is somewhere that they are a minority in that area, in the area of Damascus. And Daraa and the Bedouins there are like, Allah Babala, let's join the party. But at that point, and in Sweda, in that area and the mountain, there are more Druze, and it seems like they are doing a great job there, and they went ahead to try to rescue their brothers in and around Damascus. So the fights were the most intense during Israel's Independence Day, and when the fires were raging and Israel...
Yeah, so I think that's what the other side, that's how they see it. The Syrians, the Muslim Syrians, they're seeing it as, you've aligned with Israel. You've aligned with Israel, you're sell out, we're going to kill you, like, we're going to genocide the Druze people completely off the earth. I think that's what the situation is, because they aligned with Israel.
There was absolutely no way to get the average Israeli to talk about anything else but the fires. And so it was a little bit of a struggle uphill to divert the attention to what's happening in Syria. But last night, when things calmed down, we saw that there were protests by Druze all over the country, also shouting things like, Israel goes and rescues. If there is one injured Jew on the other side of the world, Israel will be there to rescue them. But our brethren are being slaughtered by the mass, and where is Israel? And there was this real emotional protest that was going on. And to try to separate Israel and the Druze community, which again, I talked about that connection in a different video, so please watch that to understand why we have that. There were several tactics that were used. First of all, while it was going on yesterday and 2 days ago, I think for the first time, the Syrians had, in an official setting, which I don't remember exactly what, had recognized Israel and said, yes, we recognize Israel, something like that. Or pretending that they want to cooperate with Israel, trying to, demotivate Israel from helping the Druze. On the other hand, there were a lot of rumors saying, yeah, we reached an agreement with the Druze, everything's fine, there is no need to intervene. Well, there wasn't any agreement, or there were only talks, or it was,
They're like such a minority community there, right?
A local agreement maybe, but not a general one. So that was another thing that was like, okay, everything's fine now, everything calmed down. So trying to make sure that the Druze don't get any supplies or support, because what happened was that in a lot of places they just basically ran out of ammunition, and they started fighting with their own hands. The men that were protecting the women and the children, and by the way, there are footage now that women and the Druze mountain also started participating in the fights.
They got busy with
but,
it. Madness.
In the Druze
What a
culture, there
madness.
is actual honor. I just say that to emphasize that in the Druze culture, there is actual honor, and they protect their women and children, unlike Muslims.
Crazy.
Right away, I also have a clip on that, actually, that I enlisted, where I talked about how Muslims use women and children in, they're not just in Israel, but okay, I'll just add that here. It's a little segment. Anyway, so we are seeing everything that I've been talking about. Also, you can see my interviews with Lloyd, who really explained a lot of things in the Sharia. We are seeing it live. So you have a whole network of, they are pretending to be in good terms with Israel, to be okay, to make it to make the international community sleep, because Israel is not buying that, but it's a show for the international community, who is so desperate to grasp any kind of sign that like they're normal, but they're not, they're jihadists. And also another way they did it is that they had infiltrated, for example, two groups and started talking shit as Israelis about the Druze and the Druze about the Israelis. And it was one of the groups I'm at. I was like, at some point, somebody pointed out, I think this person hates the Druze too much. I don't think he's Israeli. I don't think an Israeli would say something like that. And at some point, the Israelis were like, wait, Israelis wouldn't diss on the Druze that much, and the Druze wouldn't diss on the Israelis that much. Something
What's this dissing? Rap battles.
is wrong. And it's like,
They should just have a rap battle.
like there are bots everywhere trying to make Israelis and Druze fight. And once that was cleared, everybody like, oh, remember that actually we had agreed to be together here. A minorities pact in the Middle East between us. We call it a blood covenant. And the Israeli Druze have clearly, and the Jews in Israel understand this. We have a blood covenant, and this had been the talk for the last couple of years, especially after October 7th, and it's only getting stronger, and we really want to add the Druze in Syria into this covenant. Again, watch the full video where I explain the situation. So those bots, they can be extremely effective and manipulative until somebody was like, the media was like, notice there are bots everywhere, and people are like, calm down a little bit. And then luckily, because of that and because things come down here, Israel, by the way, I want to add that while the fights in Jamana and the Sahania were going on, Israel did fly above Damascus trying to make some noise and make sure that they understand that the Israeli Air Force is there. Except unless you strike, you ain't scaring anyone in the Middle East. And the Middle East doesn't appreciate talks.
Yeah, but also that would be like a show of a threat in it to them. So the Syrians are going to think this is a threat.
So even though tonight, actually at 4 a.m., Israel's, bombed around the palace in Damascus, did it send a message? Is it enough?
Bloody hell.
It was effective in one way. It made it clear that Israel is going to back the Druze, because for a couple of days, the Syrians, or at least the Druze in Israel, were afraid that Israel is not gonna hold their promise. Israel promised that everything that is south of Damascus, any kind of militant activity will not be accepted, and Israel would fight against them. And it's basically crossing a line, and they did it. And where was Israel, right? So Israel, surely, it was a critical day, okay? Israel was asleep. And what happened are two things. First of all, the local community in Sweden and maybe Dara, the Druze there, woke up, and the mountains and the Hamon, they woke up and they were like, okay, if Israel is not there, we have to fight back. You see, this is a fight that you cannot afford not to fight. There is no surrender there. Surrender is
Death.
Execution for the men, and humiliation, and women and kids becoming sex slaves.
Yeah, that's nah.
There is no surrender. You fight to the death in the Middle East. And they realized it. And this is what they did. And started winning. And it changed, first you are shocked, and then they changed their mindset and they started going hard. And at the same time, Israel also woke up and was like, wait, we have to make it clear that we're with them. And now there is also a video showing, first of all, that there is much more going on on the Israeli side, helping the Druze, and that Israel is willing to escalate as much as necessary to support the Druze community.
Well, we've got a situation on our hands here, haven't we?
I've made several videos explaining the relationship between Israel and the Druze communities and the splitting of the Druze community before. So if you guys want a little bit of background about who are the Druze and how this alliance between Israel and the Druze had come to be, check out this video. And I also made a video talking about minorities in Syria in general, so you can check out that video. And there is a whole playlist talking about Syria and the Druze, so go ahead if you want to know more. There is much more to talk about, and I'm gonna do it live tomorrow night, but I really wanted to talk and give you those updates. And I really wanted to demonstrate how your neighbors that you think are good Muslims and nice neighbors can turn you like that when the Ummah calls, when jihad is declared. And the other thing that I wanted to emphasize is how they use this false premise of peace and agreements to actually set up the ground for slaughter. Because once you lay down your arms, it's easier to slaughter you. So this is why they are now also insisting, and part of their agreements with the Druze communities, that the Druze would lay down their arms. I guarantee that this is just a preparation for the next slaughter. That's it. They just want to make it easier for them. This is who we're dealing with. And there is much more to say. For example, they had this, the Jilani jihadist. They're not so stupid. After they nicely invited Jews to the synagogue in Syria and took photos, while on the way out, they burned the synagogue. Yes, they burned it. And nobody talks about that because they already have the photos with the Jews who were invited to the synagogue in Damascus. All right, I have to go and be a cheerleader. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe and make it viral, please. Not necessarily my video, any video, and just talk about it. Just say, hey, what's about the Druze? What about the Druze? What about the Druze? What is happening in Syria? How about we start protecting minorities in the Middle East? Because guess what? You're next. Turkey is the one that is behind it. And you know who else is neighbor? And you know who else is Turkey's neighbor? You are. The West, the Europeans, Greece. You all are neighbors of this sweet, delusional leader.
They want a big war.
That looks at himself and thinks, yes, I'm gonna be a caliph.
They want big wars.
We do things when they're small and not wait for the next Hitler to become a Hitler.
Well, there's a situation there. Syria seems like it's going through a situation, especially the Druze and their little community. And its alignment with Israel is going to cause a rift with the Muslim community in Syria. Deadly. I'll try to keep an eye on it or watch more. She was quite good video, quite goodly informed. Obviously, it's from her point of view and her side. We'll look at it more. Interesting, though. Very interesting. That was great, man. That was great. But, boys, I'm going to call it a day. I hope you have a good day. I'm going to play some video games. I might stream a little bit later this evening. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care for now, guys. I appreciate you so much. Take care.